Hi everyone, I'm Natasha. I'm an imaginative realist artist based on the Gold Coast of Australia, and I wanted to come and talk to you today about what it's like making art while a genocide is going on. So I basically left my my job around about 6 months ago to pursue my art full time, and it was right around October, which is when obviously everything began in Palestine, the situation with in Palestine. And shortly after that, my father passed away in December, who also happens to have been born and raised in Palestine, in Bethlehem, which I discovered after his death. I knew that he was Jordanian, and I knew his family had been baptized in Palestine, but I did not realize that he himself was born and raised in Palestine. So at the same time, while I've been trying to focus on my art full time and build my business, there has been a genocide going on and playing out kind of live on our phones for the first time in human history, really. This is something that we've never been exposed to this degree, face to face, on our handheld devices in such a way that is I think, for anyone who's following along, is just overwhelmingly distressing and traumatic to watch. And you feel extremely helpless. You feel so many of us are just feeling extremely overwhelmed and paralyzed and helpless and overcome with rage. And at the same time, I've been in a position where I've been having to build my business, and I'm on a very limited income. My cost of living has gone up, skyrocketed in the 6 months since I left my work. And so I am, as much as I am incredibly grateful just to have a roof over my head and be living in a safe and peaceful place, which is everything, I am, not. I'm kind of right on the knife's edge when it comes to money. It costs a lot to, run an art business, and so I'm just barely able to, cover my costs at the moment. In the first few months, it can really be really touch and go. So I've been in a position where I have been trying to, kind of lift my voice. You have to be visible. You have to share your work. You have to raise your voice if anyone's ever going to see you and see your work. And at the same time, I've been sharing a lot of content around Palestine, around what's going on, and a lot of pro-Palestinian content, on my social media feeds, because I have to, because I feel, just their voices need to be amplified, and this to me is the number one priority at the moment. But at the same time, of course, it can be a little bit tricky to manage in between, trying to market my own art and, talk about upcoming events and talk about selling paintings and kind of put forward, products and things like that. I kind of feel this sense of guilt and confusion as to how to do that. And there's a part of me that just goes, well, you can't. But then there's another part that's like, well, you have to, because you need you need to you need to make some income, you need to pay your bills, you need to sustain your business, and so it's a matter of survival. Which brings me to my second point. At first I was just overwhelmed with guilt of, having to, I felt that every post that I shared about my art that wasn't Palestine related, or every story that I shared that wasn't a reshare of a Palestinian, creator or petition or anything like that, was just taking up the airways and, clogging up the airways and taking precious space away from what was happening there. But I've since come to realize that it's really more important than ever right now for creators, for artists, for people like me, for anyone who does anything to do with the humanitarian, the arts, anything around beauty, connection. It's more important than ever for us to really keep doing what we're doing. you know, the sort of connection and interconnectedness and the power, and it's only just taken me until this point in my life to actually realize this, but the power of and the potential of making art and putting beauty into the world is much more profound than many of us realize, than I realized for years. It's more than beauty. It's more than just a pretty picture, especially if you make the sort of art that I make, which is not just about a pretty picture. It very much is symbolic. It tells a story. It's there to really get you thinking and feeling and be emotive and really highlight our connection to the natural world, to all living things, to every other person. You know, really kind of highlight our place in the world as one small part of a greater whole, of the human collective, of the natural collective, as the of the overall power of this you know, planet and this life in which we live. And this, I feel like, has not been more important, because I'll tell you what, there is more negativity being pumped into our faces and into our world and into humanity right now, you know, quicker than we can stop it, or we can, you know, offset it. So we need to be pumping in the same level of beauty and connection and compassion at the same time. And that's our job as artists. And there are many other people in the world who have their places which bring that kind of connection and powerful beauty into the world. But this, I can only speak for the artists, this is our job, this is our role. So this is a time where we must not be silent, where we have to make our work, do our work, create our art, and bring it into the world. But I guess my conversation here was that, so even though I've come to the realization that now is more important of a time than ever to be making art and putting it out into the world, I also don't want it to be happening as a distraction from I don't want it to take anything away from what's happening. But I also don't want to just be creating art that is about bloodshed and horror and nothing else. Because I feel like that is just amplifying horror. And as much as I don't want to take away from the fact that this is horrific, there is enough horror and everyone can see it. Anyone who's watching can plainly see it in front of their eyes. It's a horror film. It's worse than the worst horror movie you can imagine. It's worse than the worst nightmare you can imagine. It's horrific. So the sort of contribution that I want to make is something that aligns with it, something that goes side by side. So I want somehow artists community to come together. I want us to be able to use our voices, to use our art as a powerful tool that it is, and to somehow keep finding a way to slot it in and keep creating it around what's going on in the world. So I guess my invitation to you, the audience, or whoever might be looking, whoever might chance upon this video, because I'm not sure, I have a very small following, I've only just started on YouTube, so maybe no one will see this. But if you are watching this and you are like-minded, or even if you disagree with me completely, please start a dialogue with me in the comments below, because I want to talk about this. I want to create more connection around this. I want to create more conversation around this, because I know how many of us are staring at our phones every morning and just feeling empty and sick to the pit of our stomach and wondering what we can do and how. And I think that it's a time where people like me, people like artists, need to be pouring everything they have into making their art. We need to be making more. We need to be pumping this out into the world. We need to be creating connection, emotion, positive emotion. And I don't mean distraction, in a way that doesn't distract from what's happening, because we need to have our eyes wide open. So, and that's the nature of my art, and what I make is something that is very much, it goes deep. It really gets you to look and think about something, rather than just going, oh, that's a pretty, it's not just about aesthetics. It's deeper than that, and that's the message I want to get out. So if anyone out there has any suggestions, anyone who might have any ideas around how we can do this, I'd love to chat to you. I'd love to start a dialogue in the comments below. I welcome you to reach out to me privately if you would prefer that. But if you're happy to leave a public comment, I'm happy to have the discussion with you below. So please tell me what you think, and I would love to make a follow-up video if this video does get seen and does get a conversation happening. I'd be more than happy to make a follow-up to keep the conversation going. Until then, everyone, take care. Thank you so much for stopping by, and everyone, please try to find some peace in your hearts at this time. But it is a time we need to keep our eyes open, and also free Palestine.